Okay, let's dive in. We've got some really fascinating material here about learning a new language,
Yeah.
especially when you're, right in the thick of it, in a demanding place.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge.
Totally. And reading through it, I really connected with the author's own story. Trying so hard with Arabic for years, but feeling like they never quite got there, despite all the effort.
That honesty is so important, isn't it? It grounds the whole thing. They're not just talking theory, they've lived it. Made most of the mistakes possible, as they say.
Exactly. And mixed in with that personal side, we have these insights from Dr. Greg Thompson, who's a real expert in second language learning.
Right. A good blend of practical experience and research.
So our mission today really is to unpack all of this. What are the key takeaways? What really makes the difference when you're trying to get good at a language? And how can, you listening avoid those common traps?
We want to go beyond just like apps and textbooks. This is about the core stuff, the principles from the field and the research that actually help you become proficient. The focus is field learning, sure, but these ideas work more broadly too.
Okay. So the first big thing that jumps out is this idea that language learning, it's deeper than just, communication tactics.
Oh, absolutely. The sources really hit that hard. It's fundamental. It's about becoming
Incarnate.
incarnate. That's a powerful word. Like Jesus becoming human, or Paul becoming all things to all men. So learning the language is framed as really entering someone else's reality.
Precisely. Connecting, understanding people on their own terms, in their culture. It's presented as this really deep investment, an active service almost.
High kind of ministry, yeah.
Exactly. And that's why the sources strongly warn against just relying on translators if you want that effective long-term connection.
Right, because it keeps you at arm's length.
And getting to that deep level, it takes a lot of time. The author even compares it to these long preparation periods, like Jesus' 30 years or Paul's 11 years.
Yeah, it suggests the process itself, learning the language, isn't just about words. It's an apostolic investment, building things like humility, flexibility, foundational qualities in you.
So the journey changes you, prepares you. It's not just about getting a skill.
Right. It demands that long view.
Okay, so we get why it's important and that it's a serious long haul. But then, what are we actually aiming for? What does fluent even mean here? It feels so fuzzy sometimes.
It really can. And the material tackles that head on. First thing, perfect native level fluency, like FSI level 5 or even 4. That's usually not the goal.
Oh, okay. That's actually kind of a relief.
Isn't it? The aim is more like a high level of functional fluency, being able to build relationships, communicate well day to day, do what you need to do, ministry, business, whatever it is.
Functioning well.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg Thompson calls this kind of fluency apparently effortless usage.
Yes, that's his term. And he makes a great distinction between high-quality fluency, which comes from tons of comprehensible input, really understanding the language in context.
Comprehensible input,
Yeah.
like hearing it used meaningfully, a lot.
Exactly. Massive amounts of it. Versus low-quality fluency, which is just being clever with the little language you have. High quality is the ideal.
Makes sense. So how do we build that high-quality fluency?
Yeah.
The material breaks it down into the 6 parts, right?
Yeah, 6 facets. The absolute foundation, number 1, is listening comprehension. Got to understand what's coming at you.
Can't do much without that. Then, speaking. That's the obvious one, the bit people see.
The visible part, yep. Third is reading, super important if you're working with, say, written texts, like for ministry. Writing, interestingly, is often less critical for just functioning day to day.
Okay. Fourth, pronunciation.
Right. Not about sounding perfect, but about being clear. You don't want to sound like fingernails on a chalkboard, as the source vividly puts it. Getting those subtle sounds right matters.
So people can actually listen without struggling.
Yeah. Fifth, vocabulary. You need thousands of words eventually, and it's a 2-stage thing. Learning the word, then really internalizing it through hearing and using it over and over.
Like that anecdote about suddenly hearing words everywhere once your vocabulary grows.
Exactly. They were always there. You just couldn't pick them out before.
That rings so true. Okay, and sixth, grammar.
Understanding the structure, not necessarily becoming a linguist, but knowing how sentences work helps avoid mistakes and speeds things up, makes speaking smoother.
Got it. So listening and speaking are kind of above the waterline.
The main goals you see.
And reading, pronunciation, vocab, grammar are the supports underneath.
The essential foundations, yeah.
And for someone doing this full time, there's a specific target mentioned, FSI level 3+.
That's the suggested level. Being able to handle yourself well in a small group, maybe teach a study, that usually takes, what, 2 to 3 years of focused work?
2 to 3 years. Wow. That's the level for real functional participation.
That's the idea, really engaging with the community.
Okay, so that's the goal. How do you actually get there? The sources talk about these 5 critical pillars for success. If a team gets these right,
Then they're much more likely to see people become fluent. And this framework recognizes 2 things. Fact 1, some people are just natural self-starters. They'll figure it out.
a small percentage though.
Right. Fact 2, most people, maybe 80% or more, are not. And that's huge. It means the responsibility for making sure these pillars are in place, it falls on leadership. Team leaders, language coordinators.
That's a big takeaway for anyone leading a team.
Okay.
Pillar 1, motivation, perspectives, perseverance, the whole effective filter thing.
Yeah, because that initial buzz wears off, right? You hit plateaus, it gets discouraging. So people need affirmation. Things like regular progress checks, maybe every 6 months, can be massive motivators. Concrete proof you are moving forward.
Even when it doesn't feel like it day to day.
Exactly. And your mindset, those effective filters, is so powerful. If you think you can't learn it, well,
Yeah.
you probably won't. But believing you can, that really helps propel you.
And Greg Thompson's point is encouraging here that even if you had bad experiences in, like, high school French,
Totally irrelevant.
that doesn't mean you can't learn to actually use a language in the field. Start fresh. Good self-esteem helps.
Absolutely. Wipe the slate clean.
And fighting that, ugh, this is too much work. Feeling by framing it differently. Like the Brewsters say, language learning is ministry.
Yes. It's loving people. It's serving. It's investing in the future. That perspective helps you resist shortcuts and see the early struggle as, well, purposeful.
Shifts it from a chore to something meaningful. Okay. Pillar 2, people, connections. Seems obvious, but
Crucial, you learn from people. Primarily, not books, not apps. Those are just tools. The main thing is building lots of relationships right from the start.
making that a priority.
A non-negotiable. And here's the tough part. Those relationships need to be mainly with locals who don't speak your first language.
Oof. Yeah, the comfort zone pull is strong. Gravitating to English speakers is easy.
But it slows you down massively. Gotta fight it.
The material also mentioned kids being helpful.
Yeah, sometimes seen as hindrances, but actually they can be great bridge builders helping you connect, especially for moms learning the language.
Interesting perspective.
Oh.
Okay, pillar 3, methodology matters. How you learn makes a big difference. Can't just wing it.
Hugely important. Thompson points out, especially in really tough language situations, success or failure often comes down to the strategy. Just being enthusiastic isn't enough if your method is bad.
So what's his bare minimum for success?
3 things. 1, lots of comprehensible input, hearing or reading language you can mostly understand, massive amounts.
Getting that meaningful exposure.
2, lots of extemporaneous speaking practice, not just reciting, but actually forming your own thoughts and speaking them on the fly.
Using it spontaneously.
And 3, steady acquisition of in-depth knowledge of the people, culture, experiences, beliefs. You can't truly get the language without getting the context behind the words.
Makes total sense. The material mentions different approaches to traditional grammar-focused.
Useful as a supplement, maybe?
Speech-led, like LMP.
Often text-based, practice-heavy.
And communicative or comprehension-led.
Those really focus on forcing understanding and expression, usually through that massive comprehensible input from interaction, audio, simple media.
And having support structures helps, like learning groups or centers.
Definitely. Can accelerate things compared to going it completely alone.
What about learning styles? That was interesting. Polly the people person versus Alan the academic learner.
Yeah, useful stereotypes. People learn differently. Polly might be more intuitive, right-brained. Alan, more logical, left-brained.
So the advice is,
Lean into your strengths. Ride that horse, as they say. Make learning enjoyable by tailoring activities to your style and level.
but, and this is a big, but don't only do what feels easy.
Exactly. Polly needs structured study time. Alan has to push himself to talk to people, lots of people. Both can succeed, but it takes balance.
Intentional effort in the weaker areas.
And under methodology, a big plug for pre-field prep, but specifically learning language acquisition skills.
Not the language itself beforehand.
Right. Learn how to learn effectively before you go. Trying to learn the language first often just ingrains bad habits, especially pronunciation.
Okay, so workshops on how to learn. And the benefit is huge, like a 20% head start.
Yeah, it translates to about 5 months saved over 2 years, just from a couple of weeks learning the process. Great ROI.
Wow. Investing in the engine, like you said. Okay, pillar 4, time stewardship. Time as a precious resource.
How much you learn is directly linked to actual time spent, not just intentions. And again, most people need help staying focused, managing that time.
So the standard recommendation is
2 to 3 years, full-time focus on language, aiming for 30-plus hours a week of language activities, including lots of informal interaction.
30 hours a week. That's basically a full-time job.
It is, and that needs to be crystal clear before people arrive. Sets expectations, gives a goal, a light at the end of the tunnel. Not having that plan, the source says that's losing the battle before you start.
Strong words. What about exceptions like moms with young kids or tent makers who have to work?
The material handles those carefully. For moms, it calls for wisdom, flexibility, but stresses language still has to be a high priority for their own well-being and ability to contribute. Husbands need to step up.
Makes sense. And for tent makers.
Really question if early work is essential. If it is, try to delay the start, reduce hours, or integrate language learning into the job. But the bottom line is less than 30 hours a week. It's just going to take longer.
Okay. And managing that time week to week.
Need a plan, probably developed with an advisor. Lots of variety tutors, study, interaction, accountability helps, like weekly reports. And watch out for
The time potholes.
yes, email the computer. The author admits struggling with this, spending too much time on screen, not enough talking. So relatable today.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Protecting that language time takes real discipline in our connected world.
For sure.
Which leads perfectly to pillar 5. Oversight. Why is this so critical?
Because most of us need a coach, right? Someone to force you to do what you don't want to do so that you will achieve what you want to achieve. That's the analogy used, especially for the 80% who aren't self-starters.
So what does good oversight look like? From a leader or language coordinator?
It's providing the vision, helping set up the plan, managing time, checking progress periodically, holding you accountable, encouraging you, giving practical help.
And sometimes it's better if it's not the main team leader.
Often, yeah. A dedicated language coordinator can focus better, but the oversight needs to be real, consistent, positive and encouraging, but not weak. The material warns against insecure leaders being too hands-off.
Because that leaves learners feeling lost.
Exactly. Lack of clear guidance breeds insecurity.
And those periodic assessments every 6 months or so are key.
Hugely powerful motivators. They give concrete data, show progress, highlight areas to work on. Best if they test actual use of the language integrative proficiency tests.
Not just grammar quizzes.
Right. And keeping results confidential helps avoid unhealthy comparisons.
There was a practical method mentioned too, recording interaction.
Yeah, record yourself talking, review it with a native speaker, identify errors and strengths, plan next steps, keep a portfolio, visibly tracks progress.
Okay, so that's the framework. Motivation mindset, people connections, smart methodology, disciplined time, and supportive oversight. 5 pillars.
All built on realistic goals and understanding that deeper why. It ties it all together.
And the payoff. I love that anecdote about the Arab speaker saying, you are going to be dangerous.
Dangerous. Yeah, sounds bad, but it's actually a huge compliment in that context. Affectionate, almost, meaning you've hit the point where you can combine who you are, your skills, your background, your gifts, with your new ability to operate effectively in the local language and culture.
Ah, yeah. Because there's that frustrating phase at first where your old skills feel useless without the language.
Right, but then they come back, amplified, you can use them in the new context, makes you really effective.
Becoming those tools in the hands of the master, ready to contribute fully, speaking the language. That's the goal this whole process aims for.
Brings it right back to language learning as that deep investment, that act of service.
So wrapping this up, it's clear learning a language this way is a major undertaking. Needs real commitment, realistic goals, connecting with people, smart methods, disciplined time, and good oversight.
But it's achievable. The sources really stress that. Any normal person can do it with the right approach and support.
Okay, so a final thought then for you listening. As you think about other big challenging goals in your life, maybe not language, but something else needing long-term effort, how do these principles apply? This idea of becoming incarnate by truly entering another world, the value of disciplined investment, clear goals, smart methods, supportive structures. What major investments are you being called to? And what kind of oversight or structure might help you see them through? Something to chew on.